Hi guys, I wanted to share with y'all how the Identity Foundations course that Martin takes you through has impacted my life. I went through that course with Martin probably now a couple years ago, and it truly completely changed my life. I know a lot of people say that about different things, but I genuinely mean that. It transformed my life in every way for the better. For myself, I grew up Catholic, so I grew up in a very religious background. For those of you that are not familiar, Catholicism is it's very rules based, and because of that, I really viewed God from a very kind of harsh and judgmental judge kind of way. That's really all I knew God to be, was kind of this far off, vengeful judge. And so as I continued on in my journey after college, I really began to just search for something more. And I started going to a non-denominational church. And I really began to hear about for the first time this idea of a relationship with Jesus. And so I began to embark on that. And it was an awesome and wonderful journey. But what I discovered was that although I really wanted a relationship with Jesus because of my religious background and the way I viewed God, I really didn't see God from the correct lens, from an accurate lens. And so through Martin's foundation course and identity, I began to discover that I had been viewing God wrong all along, that he was in fact this compassionate and loving God, and that I really had been viewing him from the wrong lens. And so I began this journey of discovering God for who he really was and removing these kind of blocks and hindrances that were keeping me from knowing God in his true character and light. And as I began to discover God for who he really was as this compassionate, loving father, I also began to discover what he said about me. I had kind of had this sinner complex that, I was this sinner that was saved by grace, and he kind of just slapped this pretty grace on me. But what I discovered through this Identity Foundations course with Martin was that I was so much more than that. I was not a sinner at all, that the Lord really saw me as just pure and holy, just a precious child. And the way that I began to view myself completely transformed. I began to really view myself as someone who was worthy of love, someone that was called and chosen, and who had so many wonderful gifts and callings. And I really gained a confidence that I had never had before. I began to walk differently and talk differently. I began to view myself differently for the first time really ever in my life. And I would say the biggest change was that I knew in my mind that, God said that I was chosen, and I had the knowledge in my head. But what happened through Martin's course is that this shift happened from knowing it in my head to believing it in my heart. And what happened when I believed in my heart what God said about me was that my actions began to change. The way that I thought began to change. The way that I saw others began to change. Everything in my life changed. I stopped having this shame-based perspective of myself, and I really began to truly love myself and discover the ways that God had created me, and gain an appreciation and value for myself. These were things that I had not really heard in church, and through Martin's Identity Foundation, I really began to love myself and love God from a place I had never before. So that's why I say that it completely transformed my life, because it was from that I truly discovered myself, and I truly discovered God for who he really was.